So I want to take some time to give you a sense of what it is the government is doing to support and hopefully to inspire the industry. But I won't be telling a group of surveyors anything new when I say that we have a particular challenge in this country when it comes to decarbonising our buildings. The Industrial Revolution of the 19th century was a fantastic boom for our economy, and our towns and our cities rapidly expanded as people flocked for work in the new factories. And then they needed somewhere to live. So the great Victorian house building project began. Thanks in part to the lifting of tax on glass and brick, rows upon rows of red bricked two-storey homes sprang up all over the country, like the houses in the opening titles of Coronation Street. Back-to-backs and Victorian villas make up swathes of both suburbia and inner cities. In fact, more than a third of UK homes were built before the Second World War, and this has left us with the oldest housing stock in Europe. To take in comparison, in Finland, just 10% of homes were built before 1945. And now Finland is world renowned for the energy efficiency of its buildings. The UK is not, at least not yet. The challenge that we face is to decarbonise something like 30 million UK homes by 2050, and when most of them were not built when anybody had even thought of EPC ratings. Many of them are drafty with old-fashioned heating systems in place, and is someone who spends a lot of my time in a very big old-fashioned Parliament building, I can say with certainty that this challenge is not going to be straightforward. Added into the mix, of course, we're fighting rising inflation and high energy bills, and energy efficiency, of course, is top of everyone's priority list. So what's our plan? Well, firstly, we recognise the urgency of this mission, and the government is moving further and faster than before. We produced our heat and building strategy, and that's the core of our work. It highlights that we're investing something like 6.6 billion over this Parliament on clean heat, on improving energy efficiency in buildings. Our aim, as in theory, simple, to make our homes and buildings more energy efficient and then get low carbon systems in place to heat them. That is the holy grail, and just like Newcastle's chances of winning the Carabao Cup, we are on the path to success. Now, of course, we realise that money is tight for many people, and the last thing that they want to be doing is spending money on boiler replacements and heat pump installations. However, if we're going to reach our net zero targets, reducing our energy bills, protecting our planet for the next generation, this is, of course, vital. So the heat and building strategy sets out how we can ensure that this transition is affordable and how it's achievable for everyone. So let's talk about the funding, first of all. In last year's autumn statement, the government announced a new ambitious target of a further 15% reduction in carbon emissions by 2030. To help reach this goal, the government has committed an additional 6 billion of investment going forward from 2025. And to help identify what the next steps will be to deliver that 15% reduction, the government is going to establish an energy efficiency task force. We have various schemes and funds already in place for both private and public settings, including things like the Social Housing Decarbonising Fund and the Home Upgrade Grant. We've expanded Eco4 funding, again, to improve the energy efficiency of housing stock occupied by low-income and vulnerable households. And that's going to help an extra 450,000 families. We've announced our new Eco Plus scheme. We're currently consulting on it, and that will focus on mainly simple insulation measures accessible by a broader range of households than many of our current schemes, including the so-called able to pay market. We're also supporting the creation of more innovative and attractive green finance options. In October, we launched the Green Home Finance Accelerator, making up to 20 million available for the development of more products and services. Of course, we're also looking at new builds, and the Future Home Standard will ensure that they emit 75% less carbon when that's introduced. We've already, of course, introduced, as you will know, an uplift in Part L of the building regulations. That means that new homes are now required to produce around 30% less CO2 emissions compared to the previous standards. In some ways, we're lucky that we're undertaking this big green retrofitting and building project now, when the sector is rife with innovation. From villages and towns that will be trialling hydrogen heating, there's been a boom in solar technology through to advances in sustainable material manufacturing. We can now update our housing stock and ensure new builds are fit for an environmentally friendly future. And the work that we are doing is already paying off. A few months ago, I visited some socially rented homes in Northampton, which have been upgraded thanks to money from the Social Housing Decarbonising Fund. What struck me most at the time was the passion and the pride of the residents there. One woman called Ali told me that the home that she shares with her partner, her 5 children, now has considerably lower energy bills despite the consequent rise in global energy prices. At the same time, external wall insulation has provided dramatic visual improvement to the front of her house. It looks so much better. Seeing the measures put in place not only showed the advances in technology in the areas of energy efficiency, it also demonstrated the power of retrofitting more widely, of how we can really improve people's lives, improve the appearances of towns and villages in several different ways. To give another example, the employees at Eclipse Energy in Yorkshire, I was up there recently to understand more about their company, which installs energy efficiency measures throughout the north of England. A few years ago, Eclipse consisted of 3 people in a small office. It now has more than 100 permanent staff members. It has a new renewables division, and that small office has become an entire complex, complete with its own warehouse. And there are many other examples up and down the country. This agenda is so important. It has the ability to deliver multiple benefits, social, environmental, and economic, all at the same time.